the Great Xia Kingdom, Tianchu Commandery. It was June in Nanfan City, and the blazing sun scorched the land like fire. At Nanfan Middle Academy, the training ground was wide and bright. Many young boys and girls in training clothes sat around the arena, watching two figures fighting in the center. Wooden swords clashed sharply. Both were around 15 or 16 years old. On the right stood a tall young man with handsome features, bright eyes, and an outstanding presence. His looks alone were enough to draw sparkling glances from many girls. Li Luo, keep it up. Several girls loudly cheered for him. Facing him was a burly teenager with dark skin and rough features. Hearing the cheers for Li Luo, he curled his lips in jealousy. Li Luo, I'm not going easy on you. He stepped forward hard enough to shake the floor. His wooden sword sliced through the air and came crashing down. Li Luo's eyes sharpened. He tapped the ground lightly and moved like a swift sparrow, avoiding the heavy strike. Sparrow wind step. Someone cried out in surprise. It was a low-grade resonance art known by many, but few had mastered it as smoothly as Li Luo. Li Luo closed in instantly. His wooden sword flashed forward like a streak of light, stabbing straight toward the burly boy's chest. Minor spirit light sword. The crowd gasped again. The strike was fast and precise, proving that Li Luo's reputation as the Academy's #1 in comprehension was well deserved. The burly boy's expression changed. He forced himself backward quickly. At the same time, a faint silver glow appeared across his body, and his hands seemed to turn into a silver bear paw. A low bear's roar rumbled from within him. Zhao Kuo is using his 5th grade silver bear resonance. Zhao Kuo stepped forward, cracking the stone floor beneath him. His heavy sword came down with violent force. Power slash. Boom. The two swords collided. Li Luo's wooden sword exploded into splinters at once.
Li Luo steadied himself, looked at the broken sword, and smiled.
The current leader is senior sister Jiang Qing'e, right? As soon as that name was spoken, every student's eyes lit up. Zhao Kuo walked over and patted Li Luo on the shoulder. You all right? Don't blame me for winning unfairly. Li Luo smiled. He knew Zhao Kuo was straightforward and had always treated him well. Being born without a resonance was his own weakness. There was no reason to blame anyone else. At the side of the arena, instructor Su Shanyu watched them with regret in his eyes. Li Luo's comprehension was extraordinary. Any resonance art placed in his hands could be mastered faster than by others. But he had been born without a resonance. Human cultivation relied on one's resonance as the foundation. Resonances absorbed the energy of heaven and earth and transformed it into resonance power. There were two major categories of resonances: elemental resonances and beast resonances. They were ranked from 1st grade to 9th grade. When youths reached a certain age, a resonance palace would open inside their bodies, and their resonance would awaken. Zhao Kuo had awakened a 5th grade silver bear resonance, which gave him terrifying strength. But Li Luo's resonance palace was completely empty. Without a resonance, he could not refine the natural energy around him or cultivate strong resonance power. That was the true reason he had lost to Zhao Kuo. Because Li Luo's parents had once been so brilliant, the academy had placed great hopes on him. They believed he would one day enter the Holy Profound Star Academy. In his first year, Li Luo displayed astonishing talent in resonance arts and was promoted directly into the 1st division, where the top geniuses of Tianchu Commandery gathered. But once students began awakening their resonance palaces, Li Luo's awkward situation became clear. Everyone else had a resonance. He did not. Without a resonance, his power progressed slowly, and he gradually fell behind. After repeated examinations, the academy concluded it was an inborn constitution. In the end, he was transferred from the 1st division down to the 2nd division. Su Shanyu sighed inwardly. Half a year ago, Zhao Kuo had not been Li Luo's match. Now he could suppress him. If this continued, Li Luo would keep falling in rank and lose any chance to enter Holy Profound Star Academy. Li Luo sat cross-legged at the side of the arena, ignoring the regretful looks around him. No resonance. It almost guaranteed a dark future. But no one knew that he was special for more than just that. Ordinary people began with only one resonance palace. Only marquis-level experts could form a second one, and only king-level experts could form a third. Yet inside Li Luo's body, there were already 3 resonance palaces. The cruel irony was that all 3 were empty. If one empty palace meant no future, then what did 3 empty palaces mean? Zhao Kuo sat beside him. Still no solution to your no-resonance problem. Li Luo shook his head. Su Shanyu stepped into the center of the arena. Next month is the grand exam. Whether you can enter a higher academy depends on this chance. Train hard. Class was dismissed. Zhao Kuo said he was going to train more and left. Li Luo walked alone along the forest path. Countless eyes turned toward him again. He was used to it. When he reached the academy gate, he stopped. Ahead stood the Wall of Honor, where the names of all geniuses who had come out of Nanfan Academy were engraved. It was always crowded. Li Luo knew why. He looked toward a crystal set into the wall. Light gathered and formed the image of a young girl. She was tall and slender, wearing the academy uniform, a clean white top, a blue short cloak, and a black skirt that revealed a pair of long fair legs. Her features were exquisite, her skin white as snow, and her golden eyes carried a pure yet imposing pressure. One hand rested on her slim waist, while the other held a heavy sword. Her expression was cold, and her presence was sharp and commanding. Behind her image was engraved the name, Jiang Qing'e. 9th grade light resonance. After only 2 years at the academy, she had been specially recruited by Holy Profound Star Academy, becoming the first person from Tianchi Commandery in 100 years to receive such an honor. She was the legend of Nanfan Academy. Li Luo gazed at her image and felt countless looks of envy, unwillingness, and curiosity directed at him. Because Jiang Qing'e was not only the adopted disciple raised by his parents. She was also his fiancée. In Li Luo's memory, the first time he saw Jiang Qing'e was when he was about 3 years old. His parents had returned from a long trip, bringing back a girl who was around 5 years old. Later, they accepted Jiang Qing'e as their disciple. From that point on, Li Luo and Jiang Qing'e could truly be considered childhood companions. His parents adored her greatly. But their relationship when they were young was a little unusual. Jiang Qing'e had always been far too outstanding, and she was 2 years older than him. Whenever they argued, it usually ended with Li Luo being completely suppressed by her. It was basically a nightmare. As for how she became his fiancée, it was said to have started when she was around 10 years old. One time, his father got drunk and casually said that if little Qing'e could become their family's daughter-in-law, it would be wonderful. The next day, 10-year-old Jiang Qing'e personally wrote out a marriage contract and handed it to his stunned father. That time, his father was nearly beaten unconscious by his mother after she came home. The most important part was that Li Luo, who had been happily watching the drama, was also dragged into it and beaten as well. Later, his mother told Jiang Qing'e to take back the marriage contract, but no one expected how stubborn she could be. She simply knelt quietly in front of his parents. In the end, with no other choice, they let the matter be. The marriage contract was put away, and no one mentioned it again, as if it had never existed. As time passed, the matter gradually faded away. Even Li Luo himself forgot about it. But a few years ago, while Jiang Qing'e was still at Nanfan Academy, one of her admirers became too persistent and obsessive. She directly announced in public that she was already engaged to Li Luo. The news shocked the entire Tianchi Commandery. Fortunately, Li Luo had not yet entered Nanfan Academy at that time. Otherwise, he probably would have been attacked by everyone. But even though several years had passed, the after effects still made him deeply understand Jiang Qing'e's influence. "Dad, you really set your son up." Li Luo sighed inwardly. "Li Luo, you stand here every day. Do you really enjoy all those jealous looks from other people?" A girl's voice suddenly sounded behind him. Li Luo turned around and saw a pretty young girl with waist-length hair and a shapely figure in a fitted academy uniform. Her name was Defacting, a student of the First Division, and she came from the Defa clan, one of the three great families of Tianchi Commandery. The two of them had no real grudge, but she was an extremely devoted supporter of Jiang Qing'e. In her eyes, Jiang Qing'e was as perfect as an immortal goddess. No man in the world was worthy of her, including Li Luo. Although she admitted Li Luo was exceptionally handsome, she believed looks alone were shallow. Only a true dragon among men could match Jiang Qing'e. So ever since Li Luo entered the academy, every time she saw him, she mocked him and then repeated the same question, "Li Luo, when are you going to cancel your engagement with senior sister Jiang?" Having heard it countless times, Li Luo rubbed his forehead. "What does it have to do with you?" Then he turned and walked away. Defacting immediately became angry and chased after him. "Do you really think a toad like you can eat swan meat?" Li Luo ignored her completely. She continued, "If you don't break the engagement, all the trouble will fall on you. The more outstanding Jiang Qing'e becomes, the bigger your problems will be. Your parents have been missing for years, Luo Lan Manor is unstable, and your title as young lord means very little now. You have no idea how many powerful and talented young geniuses in Great Xia admire senior sister Jiang. You can't expect her to repay your parents' kindness in this way. Even inside Nanfan Academy, people will come looking for trouble with you." Li Luo finally stopped walking. "Oh? Who wants to trouble me?" Defacting snorted. "Bei Kun from the Bei family. He said you shouldn't use your status to get close to senior sister Jiang. He also told you to meet him at Qingfeng Tower in 2 days for a talk." Li Luo smiled. "Of course I know him. Back then, he loved showing up in front of me. When his parents were still around, Luo Lan Manor held tremendous influence in Tianchi Commandery. Bei Kun had often tried to befriend him. Who would have thought that after Luo Lan Manor declined, the same person would be among the first to cause trouble? Back then, Bei Kun loved hosting banquets at Qingfeng Tower and warmly inviting him. Now he wanted to use the same place to pressure him." Defacting said, "Don't think it's funny. This is how the world works. When your family was powerful, people respected you. Now that Luo Lan Manor has fallen, why should anyone still give you face? All that respect was earned by your parents, not by you." Li Luo nodded. "That makes sense. Over the past 2 years, he had already experienced enough of human coldness and changing loyalties." He said nothing more and walked quickly toward the academy gate. Defacting still followed behind him, talking non-stop, repeating that he should give Jiang Qing'e her freedom. Li Luo knew the best way to deal with someone like her was to ignore her, so he did not respond once. But when he stepped out of the academy gates, the surroundings suddenly became quiet. Even Defacting fell silent, as if someone had grabbed her throat. Li Luo turned to look at her and saw that her face was flushed red, her eyes full of excitement as she stared down the stone steps. He followed her gaze. An ancient and luxurious carriage was parked below the stairs, pulled by 4 crimson lion horse beasts. On the carriage was the familiar crest of Luo Lan Manor. But what excited everyone was not the carriage. It was the girl standing in front of it. She wore her long hair in a ponytail. Her beautiful face was calm and distant. Under the evening light, her skin glowed softly. She wore a blue cloak, long boots, and beneath her battle skirt were long, straight, fair legs. Most striking of all were her golden eyes, bright as the sun. Jiang Qing'e. The area outside the academy instantly erupted. Countless students stared at the legendary figure who had once come from Nanfan Academy. Li Luo walked down the steps and stopped in front of her. Sister Qing'e, when did you come back to Nanfan City? Although Luo Lan Manor had started in Nanfan City, after becoming one of the 4 great manors, its center had moved to Great Xia City. After Jiang Qing'e entered Holy Profound Star Academy, she had also moved there. On top of managing Luo Lan Manor, she rarely had time to return. Li Luo had not seen her for quite a while. Jiang Qing'e looked at him. Tomorrow is your 17th birthday. Also, Luo Lan Manor has some important matters to discuss here. I arrived in Nanfan City today, so I came to pick you up on the way. Her voice was cool and clear, like spring water striking jade. Li Luo nodded. He had long been used to her personality. Then let's go. Standing beside her here felt like being pierced by countless sharp stares. Jiang Qing'e gave a slight nod, but did not turn immediately. Instead, she looked at defecting. You are defecting, correct? Defecting nodded excitedly. Senior Sister Jiang, you still remember me? Jiang Qing'e said calmly, I hope you won't bother Li Luo anymore. Otherwise, I may give your older brother at Holy Profound Star Academy some special attention. The excitement on defecting's face instantly froze. Under those golden eyes, she could only nod obediently, without any trace of the arrogance she had shown before. After saying that, Jiang Qing'e turned around. Her blue cloak fluttered lightly as she entered the carriage together with Li Luo. The lion horse beasts let out a long cry and pulled the carriage away. Defecting watched it leave for a long time, then held her face in both hands, completely enchanted. Senior Sister Jiang, she's way too cool. 4 lion horse beasts pulled the carriage steadily through the wide streets of Nanfan City. Inside, the carriage was spacious and warm. Li Luo and Jiang Qing'e sat facing each other across a tea table. Neither of them spoke much. As soon as he got in, Li Luo closed his eyes to rest. Jiang Qing'e opened a book and began reading. A ray of sunlight slipped through the crack in the carriage window and landed on her jade-like face. The silence lasted for a while before Jiang Qing'e finally looked up at him. It seems the things I said at Nanfan Academy caused you some trouble. I apologize. Li Luo opened his eyes and looked at her beautiful face, which always carried a sharp and commanding air. That apology doesn't sound sincere at all. If you really mean it, then let me cancel the engagement. Jiang Qing'e turned a page calmly. So this is one of those broken engagement stories? But in those plays, I'm supposed to be the one saying it first. Aren't you doing this backward? Li Luo did not know whether to laugh or cry. She looked at him again. Or are you afraid this engagement will only bring you bigger trouble? Li Luo was silent for a moment, then shook his head. I'm afraid it'll hold you back. Why should a girl like you carry around such a meaningless engagement? You know how it came to be. My father got beaten by my mother so many times because of it. Honestly, he deserved it. But why was I dragged in and beaten every time too? By the end, his voice was full of resentment. Remembering the sight of his normally elegant mother standing with hands on her hips while chasing father and son around the house, even Jiang Qing'e's lips curved slightly before she quickly regained her composure. I'm not afraid, she said. Li Luo rubbed his forehead. What if you meet someone you truly like later? This is too careless. Jiang Qing'e smiled faintly. That may never happen. My standards are high. And besides, you and I once had an engagement. I have no interest in anyone else. Li Luo stared at her, and a trace of anger entered his voice. Jiang Qing'e, what exactly are you thinking? I know my parents treated you very well, and I know you're grateful to them. But you don't need to repay them like this. What am I to you? Some tool for showing gratitude. You agreed to this engagement, but did I ever agree? His sudden anger made Jiang Qing'e pause. She looked at him quietly for a moment, then lowered her head slightly. You're right. I didn't consider your feelings. Li Luo said, if that's the case, then this engagement but. She raised her head and looked at him seriously. You know the rules in our house. When two sides disagree, they fight. Whoever wins gets to decide. That had been the rule set by Li Luo's mother. Whenever she and his father argued, she would simply drag him into the training room. If you truly object to the engagement, then when we get home, we'll settle it in the training room. Li Luo's face stiffened instantly. Jiang Qing'e, don't go too far. I'm only at the 10 seal stage. You're an Earth Fiend General. Fight what? After opening a resonance palace, cultivators entered the 10 seal foundation stage, then the resonance master stage. Beyond that were three major realms, General Ascension, Marquis, and King. General Ascension was divided into Heaven Dipper General and Earth Fiend General. Jiang Qing'e was already at the Earth Fiend General level. At her age, reaching that realm shocked countless people. Some even believed she would break the record for the youngest Marquis in Great Xia. And now she wanted an Earth Fiend General to fight someone at the 10 seal stage. Li Luo honestly worried she might accidentally slap him to death. Jiang Qing'e closed her book. It seems you don't agree with that method. Then there's no other way. Li Luo trembled in frustration. All he wanted was to end an engagement. Why was it this hard? He leaned against the carriage window and looked at her refined face, especially those pure golden eyes, then sighed. Sister Qing'e, we've lived together for many years. But I understand that you don't have those kinds of feelings for me. If there's no real affection, what meaning does this engagement have? Jiang Qing'e was silent for a moment. I was going to say you don't even turn 17 until tomorrow, so why are you pretending to be so mature? But what you said makes sense. I'm not interested in anyone else. But with you, at least I don't feel repulsed. Li Luo gave a bitter smile. That marriage contract mostly came from your gratitude toward my parents. I believe the feelings you have for them are far deeper than anything you feel for me. But I don't need that kind of gratitude. He lowered his head for a moment, then looked directly into her eyes. I know asking you to withdraw the engagement is unrealistic. But I hope you'll give yourself, and me, a chance. Let's make a deal. Until I'm strong enough, help me manage Luo Lan Manor. When the day comes that I'm qualified to take it over, if you can return it to me intact, then your debt will be repaid. And I'll return the engagement contract to you. Jiang Qing'e said nothing. Her slender fingers tapped lightly on the table. After a long silence, she asked softly, Li Luo, do you really not like me? Li Luo froze, then took a deep breath. Sister Qing'e, you underestimate your own charm. To people our age, you're irresistible. If I said I didn't like you at all, that would be a lie. But I don't want this kind of engagement. Jiang Qing'e's brows lifted slightly, and she slapped the tea table. Bang. Li Luo jumped and immediately scooted backward. We can talk this out. No need to get physical. She glanced at him. It's only been a while, but your mouth has improved. Still, some of what you said makes sense. I can treat this as a transaction. When you are qualified to take over Luo Lan Manor, I will hand it back to you exactly as it should be. At that time, you return the engagement to me. Li Luo let out a long breath of relief. Yet somewhere deep inside, he also felt an inexplicable sense of loss. Your words today made me see you differently. It seems you are no longer a child. Li Luo frowned. A child? What part of me is small? Jiang Qing'e ignored that and looked at him with a half smile. But I still need to remind you of one thing. Do you really want to make this deal? Once the engagement is returned, you won't have another chance in this lifetime. Li Luo narrowed his eyes, placed both hands on the tea table, and leaned forward over her. Their faces were less than 2 feet apart. Jiang Qing'e, I truly don't care about this engagement. One day, I want you to personally give it back to me. Not because of my parents. Her golden eyes reflected his face, and the smile at the corner of her lips deepened. She understood exactly what he meant. If one day she gave it back herself, it would mean she truly liked him. Sit down. An invisible force appeared and slammed Li Luo back into his seat. He winced in pain. All of his earlier momentum vanished instantly. Jiang Qing'e rested her chin in one hand and looked at him lazily. Not much skill. A lot of confidence. I've met many geniuses over the years. No one has spoken to me like that. You want a chance? I'll give you one. I'll be waiting for you at Holy Profound Star Academy. That is the first step. If you can't even do that, then treat everything you said today as youthful arrogance. And forget it. Li Luo said nothing more. He leaned against the window and closed his eyes. Then wait for me. Jiang Qing'e looked out through the crack in the carriage window as the streets passed by. Sunlight reflected in her eyes, and the corner of her lips curved slightly. The carriage continued forward. After a while, Li Luo suddenly opened his eyes. This isn't the road home. Jiang Qing'e nodded lightly. We're going to Golden Dragon Fortress to retrieve something. She looked at him. Master and mistress left it for you before they departed. They said it could only be opened when you turned 17. Li Luo's heart shook. His parents had left something for him. Within the Great Xia Kingdom, there were countless powerful clans and factions, but 2 organizations stood in absolute neutrality. Even the great manors and the royal family did not wish to offend them lightly. One was the Holy Profound Star Academy. The other was the Golden Dragon Bank. The Holy Profound Star Academy was the ultimate dream of countless young men and women. Every year, the talented youths who graduated from it were eagerly recruited by all major powers. The Golden Dragon Bank specialized in storage, auctions, exchanges, and many other businesses. Its wealth made countless factions envious, yet no one dared target it. That was because the Golden Dragon Bank was unimaginably vast, and its branch within Great Xia was only a small part of the whole organization. The Golden Dragon notes issued by the bank could be exchanged for an equal amount of gold anywhere people could be found. Nanfan City was the capital city of Tianshu Commandery, so naturally it also had a branch of the Golden Dragon Bank, located in the most luxurious district. When Li Luo stepped down from the carriage and looked at the magnificent golden building before him, he could not help clicking his tongue in admiration. Even a branch office in a commandery city was so grand. The wealth of the Golden Dragon Bank was truly difficult to imagine. Compared to such a giant, even Luo Lan Manor seemed small. Jiang Qing'e paid little attention to it and walked straight inside. Li Luo quickly followed behind her. The interior of the bank was lavish beyond compare. Jiang Qing'e took out a golden token and handed it to a maid. After carefully checking it, the maid respectfully led them into a VIP room. They did not wait long before a plump middle-aged man entered with a wide smile. All 10 of his fingers were covered with gemstone rings of different colors. Haha, so it is the young lord of Luo Lan Manor and Miss Jiang. Your arrival truly honors our bank. The man clearly knew Li Luo's identity and current situation, yet he showed no trace of contempt. He even placed Li Luo's title first. This is President Lu, the branch head of the Golden Dragon Bank in Tianshu Commandery, Jiang Qing'e said. Then she spoke directly. President Lu, please take us to retrieve the item. President Lu smiled and nodded, then turned to lead the way. The 3 of them passed through multiple guarded doors before finally descending deep underground. Under his guidance, they entered a completely sealed secret chamber. The 4 stone walls were black and polished like mirrors. President Lu raised his hand and lightly tapped the wall. It immediately split apart, revealing a metal safe made from some unknown material. This is the item the two manor lords left here years ago. To open it, the young lord must come in person and use blood as the key. After saying that, President Lu withdrew on his own. Li Luo stared at the iron safe, momentarily lost in thought. He did not know what his parents had left behind, but he vaguely felt it was extremely important, perhaps even something that could change his future. He took a deep breath and placed his hand on the safe. A sharp pain came from his fingertip as a drop of blood was drawn inside. Click. Click. Mechanical sounds came from within. A faint light appeared across the surface, and the box slowly split open down the middle. What lay inside finally appeared before Li Luo. It was a black crystal sphere. Its surface was smooth and glossy, reflecting his face, and it looked mysterious. What is this? Li Luo blinked. Take it first, Jiang Qing'e said as she handed him a briefcase. Master and mistress once said it should only be opened on your 17th birthday. Li Luo nodded. He carefully picked up the black sphere, placed it into the case, and gripped it tightly. His eyes seemed slightly moist. What is it? Jiang Qing'e asked. I have a feeling my life is about to turn around, so I'm a little emotional. He shook the briefcase and said seriously, just wait. I'll definitely succeed in breaking off the engagement. Jiang Qing'e ignored him and turned to leave the secret chamber. She knew his emotions were stirred right now and did not tease him further. When the two of them came back out of the underground vault, President Lu was waiting there again. Beside him stood a graceful young girl. She wore green clothing, had a tall and elegant figure, and delicate features. Her long hair reached her slim waist. Her eyes were bright and deep, and her skin was fair and luminous like carved jade. She wore thin silk gloves on both hands, but they could not hide her slender fingers. In terms of looks and bearing, she surpassed defecting by a level. Yet when Li Luo saw her, his expression stiffened for a brief moment before returning to normal. Haha, this is my niece, Luo Qing'e. She also studies at Nanfan Academy and admires Miss Jiang greatly, so she insisted on coming to meet you. President Lu smiled. Greetings, senior sister Jiang. Luo Qing'e bowed gracefully. Jiang Qing'e looked her over, then asked, if you also study at Nanfan Academy, then you must know Li Luo. Luo Qing'e glanced at him and smiled. Li Luo once guided me in resonance arts. I have always been grateful to him. It's just that for the past 2 years, he seems unwilling to see me. Li Luo immediately looked embarrassed and hurriedly laughed. No, no. Don't say it like that. We're just in different divisions, so we rarely meet. Inside, he felt helpless. Luo Qing'e's reputation at Nanfan Academy far exceeded defecting's. Not only was she beautiful, she had also become the Academy's new star, ranking first even among the many talents of the first division. Back when Li Luo was still in the first division, none of the students had awakened their resonance palaces yet. With his extraordinary talent in resonance arts, he had stood out among them, and many students sought his guidance, including Luo Qing'e. At that time, the two of them had a fairly good relationship. But after the later changes, Li Luo was transferred to the second division, while Luo Qing'e took his former place. Li Luo had pride. To avoid awkwardness, he often avoided her. He had not expected to meet her here today. Luo Qing'e did not comment on his shallow excuse and simply turned to chat with Jiang Qing'e instead. Eventually, they escorted the two of them to the main entrance. Haha, Miss Jiang, I hear Luo Lan Manor may become lively in the next few days. As they parted, President Lu smiled meaningfully. Jiang Qing'e remained calm. President Lu is very well informed. Ai, what a pity. He sighed, then added, if you need cooperation in the future, come to me anytime. The Golden Dragon Bank values harmony and prosperity. Li Luo found the words a little strange but did not ask further. He boarded the carriage with Jiang Qing'e, and they quickly departed. President Lu rubbed his oily round face and looked toward Lu Qing'e, noticing that she was still watching the direction the carriage had gone. He coughed lightly. "Girl, you don't happen to like Li Luo, do you?" Lu Qing'e glanced at him. "I only think it's a pity for him. He once guided me in resonance arts, so I admired him somewhat. If not for being born without a resonance, he would have been my greatest rival at Nanfan Academy." President Lu patted his chest in relief. "That's good, that's good. He already has an engagement. Don't think about it. With your qualities, what young genius in Great Xia wouldn't be worthy of you?" Lu Qing'e shook her head, ignored him, and turned away, leaving behind a faint fragrance. President Lu remained where he stood, scratching his head and smiling foolishly. After leaving the Golden Dragon Bank, silence filled the carriage. Jiang Qing'e said nothing. Li Luo also remained quiet, holding the briefcase in his arms, lost in thought. The carriage finally stopped in front of a vast estate, with rolling artificial hills, pavilions, and layered courtyards. This was the old residence of Luo Lan Manor, founded years ago by Li Luo's parents. The 4 lion horse beasts halted at the entrance. Li Luo and Jiang Qing'e stepped down together. "This place is much quieter than before," Jiang Qing'e said softly as she looked at the estate. Back when Li Luo's parents were still here, this had been the headquarters of Luo Lan Manor. People came and went constantly. It was nothing like the emptiness now. The headquarters was moved to the royal capital long ago. "This is only the old residence now, so being quiet is normal," Li Luo replied with a smile. As they spoke, the front gate opened and several people came out to greet them. Leading them was an elderly man with a warm, honest smile. Beside him stood a mature woman with elegant beauty and a graceful, full figure. "Uncle Lu," Li Luo called out. Uncle Lu had served his parents for many years. He now managed the old estate and took care of Li Luo's daily life. Jiang Qing'e nodded to him and introduced the woman beside him. "This is Sister Cai Wei. She is my assistant in the royal capital and helps manage many affairs of Luo Lan Manor." "Greetings, young manor lord," Cai Wei said with a smile. Li Luo returned the greeting. "Thank you for your hard work, Sister Cai Wei." Jiang Qing'e continued, "For some time, Sister Cai Wei will remain in Nanfan City and take over part of Luo Lan Manor's businesses in Tianshu Commandery. All matters will be reported to you." Li Luo paused slightly. Ever since the headquarters moved to the royal capital, the businesses in Tianshu Commandery had remained fairly stable. For Jiang Qing'e to suddenly send one of her most trusted people here meant something had happened. "Did something go wrong?" he asked. Jiang Qing'e's sudden return clearly was not only because tomorrow was his 17th birthday. Her expression cooled slightly before she turned and walked inside. "Come with me." The three walked along a stone path through the estate. Tree shadows covered the ground, with scattered light falling through the leaves. "Even though you've stayed in Nanfan City, you've probably heard some rumors about Luo Lan Manor. I didn't tell you before because I didn't want it to affect you." Li Luo nodded. His parents had been missing for years. Luo Lan Manor could never have remained peaceful. In Great Xia, establishing a manor was not easy. The most important requirement was having a marquis-level expert in command. There were currently 5 great manors in Great Xia, and Luo Lan Manor was one of them. Compared to the other 4 ancient powers, Luo Lan Manor had been founded the latest, but it had risen the fastest. That was because his father was Marquis Yangxian, Li Teixuan. His mother was Marquis Lan, Tan Talon. One manor with 2 marquises was the reason Luo Lan Manor had rapidly entered the ranks of the 5 great manors. But because it had been established recently, its foundation was weaker than the other 4. Normally, that would not have mattered. With the talent of his parents, they would have closed the gap in time. But they had suddenly disappeared. Without its 2 pillars, Luo Lan Manor's strength declined rapidly. At first, the lingering prestige of the 2 marquises still remained, and no one dared move against them. But as time passed and there was still no news, rumors even spread that they had died on the battlefield of kings and marquises. As one of the 5 great manors, Luo Lan Manor possessed industries and wealth across the kingdom. It was a prize many forces coveted. So in the last 2 years, some had begun showing their fangs. Under that pressure, Jiang Qing'e, who was still studying at Holy Profound Star Academy, had no choice but to temporarily take over Luo Lan Manor. Although her reputation continued to grow, she had not yet stepped into the marquee realm. Her presence alone was not enough to suppress everyone. Surrounded by wolves, she could only give up some businesses in exchange for time to stabilize and gather strength. Because of those repeated concessions, outsiders believed Luo Lan Manor was close to collapse. Li Luo actually agreed with her approach. Without enough strength, stubbornly clinging to wealth would only invite greater disaster. Even though Luo Lan Manor's influence has declined these past 2 years, hasn't the overall situation begun to stabilize? He asked. Jiang Qing'e replied, the outside pressure has eased for now. But this time, the problem is inside the manor. Li Luo's gaze sharpened. Is it senior brother Pei Hao? Both Jiang Qing'e and Cai Wei looked at him with slight surprise. Li Luo smiled faintly. You haven't ruled the manor long, but your authority is already strong. In the entire Luo Lan Manor, the only one who can still oppose you is the honorary eldest disciple my parents once accepted. Pei Hao had wandered in hardship when he was young. He had nearly been killed by enemies before Li Luo's parents saved him and brought him into the manor. After entering Luo Lan Manor, he worked hard, showed decent talent, and steadily rose in status until he was accepted as an honorary disciple. From then on, his position rose quickly. By the time Li Luo's parents disappeared, Pei Hao already held significant power. When his parents were still around, Pei Hao often tried to stay close to Li Luo. But over the last 2 years, especially after news spread that Li Luo had no resonance, that closeness disappeared. Pei Hao has always been dissatisfied with my leadership, Jiang Qing'e said. He has repeatedly made decisions on his own. Of the 9 divisions in the manor, nearly half of the division leaders lean toward him. If he truly cared about Luo Lan Manor, I could tolerate it. Even this leadership position I only accepted it because master and mistress entrusted it to me. Li Luo nodded. Jiang Qing'e's personality had never suited handling endless internal affairs. With her talent, cultivation should have been her proper focus. But Li Luo himself was even less capable of carrying that burden. A young manor lord without strength who would follow him. If Luo Lan Manor were truly handed to him now, the legacy his parents built would likely collapse quickly. In this world, strength was what earned obedience. You've worked hard, Sister Qing'e, Li Luo said sincerely. Jiang Qing'e shook her head. There's no need. You and I have an engagement. Luo Lan Manor belongs partly to me as well. Li Luo fell silent. Cai Wei covered her mouth and laughed softly. Jiang Qing'e continued, ever since master and mistress disappeared, hearts inside the manor have become unstable. I tried to hold things together, but Pei Hao used the chance to win people over and oppose me everywhere. I investigated before. I suspect another force is backing him in secret. Li Luo picked up a fallen leaf. So we raised an ungrateful wolf. Tomorrow Pei Hao will bring people to Nanfan City to meet me, Jiang Qing'e said. There is a high chance talks will fail. If it reaches the worst outcome, Luo Lan Manor will split apart. In its current condition, that would be a heavy blow. A cold light appeared in her golden eyes. Li Luo frowned. Luo Lan Manor was already surrounded by forces watching for weakness. If it divided internally, its strength would be greatly reduced, and the future would become even harder. But all he could do was sigh. In his current state, he could do nothing. The title of young manor lord probably meant little to many people in the manor now. Everything came down to the fact that he had no strength and no future. I'm sorry, he said. I can't help you. Jiang Qing'e shook her head, her tone softening. Don't worry. Even if Luo Lan Manor is unstable now, when the day comes to hand it to you, I will return it whole. Li Luo said nothing. What he truly cared about was not wealth or power. Only becoming strong himself mattered. If one day he entered the king or marquis level, all the difficulties of today could be solved. Later, the two returned to the old residence for dinner. Jiang Qing'e went back to preparing for tomorrow's matters. Li Luo did not disturb her. He went to the training hall and practiced resonance arts for 2 more hours before returning to his room. That night, he could not sleep. At midnight, he suddenly rose from bed and pulled the briefcase out from beneath it. He carefully lifted out the black crystal sphere. His heartbeat grew faster and faster. Father. Mother, what exactly did you leave for me? The black crystal sphere was smooth and reflective like a mirror, showing Li Luo's face clearly. Expectation and tension were written all over it. He desperately wanted to know what his parents had gone to such lengths to leave behind for him. How do I open this? Li Luo forced himself to calm down, looked over the sphere carefully, then slowly placed both hands on top of it. Buzz. The moment his palms touched it, the sphere gave off a faint vibration. Its hard surface suddenly turned into black liquid and gradually covered both of his hands. At the same time, he felt tiny needle-like pricks in his palms, and a few drops of blood were drawn out. The black liquid slowly pulled away from his hands. Light began to shine from within it, then wove together into two figures. The moment Li Luo saw those familiar silhouettes, his nose stung. Father, mother, one man and one woman appeared. The man was tall, dressed in white, handsome, and carried a calm, steady presence. A gentle smile rested on his face. The woman wore purple robes with her hair tied up neatly. Her beauty was striking, and her bearing was elegant and composed. They were Li Luo's parents, Li Luo and Tian Can. Li Luo smiled. Little Luo, by the time you see this recording, you should already be 17. There's a high chance your mother and I are no longer by your side. Tian Can laughed softly. Little Luo must be even more handsome now. Any girls chasing you at the academy? Li Luo rubbed his eyes and muttered, other than being handsome, I've got nothing. Who would chase me? Li Luo laughed again. Little Luo, are you feeling like you have nothing left? Tian Can added, is it because you have no resonance? Li Luo froze. By the time his resonance palaces had appeared, his parents had already vanished for years. How did they know? Tian Can spoke gently. Don't be surprised. Before your resonance palaces appeared, we used a secret method to observe your body. That includes knowing you have 3 resonance palaces. Li Luo's mouth fell open. So his parents had known about his condition long ago. Li Luo became serious. Little Luo, I need to tell you this. Being born without a resonance does not make you worthless. In my eyes, it is the strongest physique in the world. Li Luo stared blankly. Father, if you're trying to comfort me, this is going too far. Without a resonance, even cultivating resonance power was difficult. How could that be the strongest? Li Luo smiled. It's true that being unable to absorb the energy of heaven and earth is a fundamental problem. But it doesn't mean there is no solution. If you have no resonance, then create one. Tian Can continued, your father and I searched for years. And in the end, we found a way. Li Luo's heart began pounding violently. Li Luo said, we studied countless ancient texts and finally found a method called the Lesser Divine Forging Art of No Resonance. With this art, a postnatal resonance can be forged. If blood essence and soul are merged into it during the forging process, that resonance can then be fused into a resonance palace. Being born without a resonance may not be a bad thing. Innate resonances are too random. They cannot be chosen. But a postnatal resonance can be decided by you. If you want an elemental resonance, forge it that way. If you want a beast resonance, forge it that way. In the future, all 3 of your resonance palaces can contain 3 resonances of your own choosing. With 3 resonances supporting one another, their power could surpass many innate resonances. Li Luo's eyes lit up. Everyone else awakened a fixed resonance they could never change. He had none, but that meant he could choose. Tian Can added, there is another advantage. Most innate resonances only carry 1 attribute. But a postnatal resonance forged through this art can hold 2 attributes, 1 primary and 1 secondary. If those 2 attributes complement each other, the power increases greatly. Li Luo instantly understood. If fire were the main attribute and lightning the secondary one, the destructive force would far exceed fire alone. He could not help feeling excited. Li Luo coughed lightly. But nothing is perfect. A newly forged postnatal resonance will begin at no higher than 4th grade. Li Luo paused. 4th grade was far below Jiang Qing'e's 9th grade light resonance. But after another thought, his current condition was already terrible. Even a 4th grade resonance was better than none. Tian Can said, you don't need to worry. A postnatal resonance can be upgraded later. Li Luo immediately understood. There were countless rare medicines and treasures in the world that could improve resonance grades. Especially through tempering resonance masters, who created spirit liquids and radiant essences used to refine resonances. Though such methods had limits for normal people, it was still a clear path forward. Li Luo smiled. Worried there's still a ceiling. Tian Can glanced at him. You've said everything already. What am I supposed to say now? Li Luo instantly changed tone. My wife is right. You continue. Li Luo looked at the scene and could not help shaking his head. His father really had not changed. Li Luo snorted. Brat, are you laughing at me? I'm not afraid of your mother. I just love her too deeply. Loving your wife is the #1 family rule. You and Qing'e must remember that in the future. Li Luo gave a cold laugh. Every time his father said those words, there were usually fresh punch marks on his face. Thinking of Jiang Qing'e gave him another headache. She had practically been raised by his mother, and her personality was nearly identical. At the slightest disagreement, she wanted to hit people. Tian Can frowned. Stop wasting time. Then she looked at Li Luo, her tone becoming warm again. The limit on upgrading only applies to innate resonances. That's because outside materials always contain impurities. When enough impurities accumulate, the resonance palace seals itself and cannot improve further. But you have no resonance. Your resonance palaces have no fixed attribute, so they reject nothing. Empty means blank. And blank means it can contain all things. So your resonances can continue to be refined and upgraded. The higher the grade, the harder it becomes. But you truly have a chance to bring a postnatal resonance close to perfection. That is why I say no resonance may be the strongest of all. It only lacked the key to unlock it. Li Luo's emotions surged. For years, he had endured ridicule and disappointment because of his lack of resonance. At first, he had been angry and unwilling to accept it. Later, only helplessness remained. And now his parents were telling him that no resonance did not mean uselessness. His eyes turned red. Tian Can continued. The first postnatal resonance has already been forged using your blood essence and a strand of your soul. It is inside the sphere. The lesser divine forging art of no resonance is there as well. Li Luo spread his arms. Father, mother, thank you. Give it to me. Let me begin today. At that moment, Li Luo's face became solemn. There is one more thing you must know. Fusing with a postnatal resonance is not simple. It will consume a great amount of your blood essence. That is why we waited until you were 17. Only now can your body barely endure it. But more importantly, what you lose is not only blood essence. You will also lose lifespan. From the moment fusion begins, you will only have 5 years left to live. Unless within those 5 years you reach the Marquis realm and evolve your life level. Otherwise, after 5 years, your lifespan will end. Your mother and I argued about this for a long time. The price was too great. So today we are telling you clearly and letting you choose for yourself. If you want a peaceful life, living comfortably in wealth, then close the sphere. Everything inside it will destroy itself. If you choose the other road, then place your hand inside. No matter what you choose, your mother and I will always support you. Their words ended. The two figures simply looked at him quietly with gentle eyes. Li Luo slowly sat down and stared at the black sphere. He had already guessed that power like this could not come without a cost. He just had not expected the price to be 5 years of life. The room was silent. The black crystal sphere gave off a faint glow, lighting Li Luo's shifting expression. He was facing an extremely difficult choice. The lack of resonance inside him, after all the effort his parents had made, had suddenly brought him great hope. But the price was 5 years of lifespan. If he could not reach the Marquis realm within 5 years and evolve his life level, then his lifespan would come to an end. 5 years to become a Marquis? He was 17 now. 5 years later, he would only be 23. In the history of Great Xia, there had likely never been a Marquis that young. How much talent, luck, and effort would something like that require? Li Luo did not know. He only felt crushing pressure pressing down on him, making it hard to breathe. If he continued living normally, his parents had left behind Luo Lan Manor. Even if he could not truly control it, as long as he gave in enough, he could still live a wealthy and comfortable life. But if he chose the path of the postnatal resonance, then he would have to fight for every second, squeeze every bit of potential from himself, and struggle against fate for a narrow chance to survive. Which path should he choose? Li Luo slowly closed his eyes. He thought of the strange looks at the academy. He thought of the words, a tiger father with a dog son. He thought of people asking how parents so outstanding could have a son who turned out like this. He also thought of Jiang Qing'e's pure golden eyes. Deep down, he had always liked her somewhat. He did not deny that. Someone like her was naturally hard for people their age to ignore. Since childhood, he and Jiang Qing'e had always competed in many ways. Most of the time, he lost more than he won. When they were younger, that had not mattered. But after they opened their residence palaces, the gap between them only grew wider. From that point on, Jiang Qing'e rarely spoke of winning or losing anymore. These past years had made Li Luo seem calmer on the surface. But only he knew how strong his desire to compete still was. The deal he made with Jiang Qing'e in the carriage had also been a way of forcing himself forward. Under normal circumstances, catching up to her would have been nearly impossible. But now, a small chance had appeared. Would he give it up? Impossible. Li Luo suddenly opened his eyes, sharper than ever before. He looked at the two figures of his parents. Father. Mother. I've always had an ambition. To others, it would sound ridiculous and overconfident. I don't only want to catch up to Sister Qing'e. I want to surpass her. And not only her. I want to surpass both of you too. He grinned. One day, when people see me, they won't say I'm the son of Li Luo and Tian Can. They'll say, when they see you, these are the parents of Li Luo. Li Luo took a deep breath. Father, Mother, thank you for this gift on my 17th birthday. 5 years to become a marquis. I accept that challenge. As the final words fell, his expression became resolute. Without hesitation, he placed his hand on the black sphere. Hiss. The sphere reacted violently at once. Pain shot through his palm as if countless needles were stabbing into it. The sphere slowly split open. Inside were two objects. One was a black jade slip, likely containing the lesser divine forging art of no resonance. The other was something strange, like liquid, and yet like flowing light. It was deep blue, with tiny holy rays shimmering inside. Li Luo stared at it. He knew this was the thing that could change his fate. The postnatal resonance his parents had forged for him. The moment he saw it, a powerful sense of connection rose from his soul. It felt as if this thing had originally been born from within him. Just then, a sigh sounded. Li Luo looked up. The two figures of his parents had become lively again, their expressions complicated. Little Luo, it seems you've made your choice, Li Luo said slowly. As your father, I feel heartbroken. But as a man, I feel proud and gratified. The road ahead of you will be full of hardship. But how could my son fear such things? There seemed to be moisture in Tian Can's eyes. As a mother, how could she feel at peace knowing her son had only 5 years left to live? But she had still let him choose for himself. And since he had chosen, she would support him. Little Luo. Let mother explain this postnatal resonance to you. Li Luo focused immediately. Your father and I tried countless times before finding the most suitable materials. In the end, we forged it. This resonance is 4th grade. Its main attribute is water. Its secondary attribute is light. Li Luo froze. Why is it water? Among elemental resonances, fire, lightning, and metal were famous for offense. Water was gentle by nature, not known for destructive power. He had not expected his first resonance to be of this type. Li Luo smiled. Don't underestimate water. It may not excel in explosive force. But it surpasses others in endurance and depth. If used properly, it is no weaker than any resonance. And your water resonance is not ordinary. It also has light as a secondary attribute. The combination of water and light may produce effects beyond your expectations. There were 2 reasons we chose it. First, after fusion, you will lose much blood essence, your lifespan will shorten, and your body will suffer severe damage. Water is gentle. Light has healing effects. They are ideal for helping your recovery. Li Luo finally understood. When it came to healing, those 2 attributes were indeed excellent. And the second reason, he asked. Li Luo replied, your mother and I hope you become a tempering resonance master. Li Luo paused. A tempering resonance master specialized in refining spirit liquids and radiant essences that improved the grade of resonances. The basic requirement to become one was possessing either a water resonance or a light resonance. Why should I become one? He asked. Because you have no innate resonance, Li Luo said. You can continuously refine and improve your own resonance grade. If you become a tempering resonance master, you will understand that process more deeply. And it will be easier to bring your resonance closer to perfection. Most people only possess water or light. You possess both. With those two purification powers working together, if you don't become a tempering resonance master, it would be a waste. The spirit liquids you refine may far surpass those made by others. Tian Can laughed softly. This is also a backup path we prepared for you. If one day you ruin Luo Lan Manor, at least you'll still have a skill to survive with. Li Luo could only scratch his head. His parents had truly thought of everything. Tian Can continued, we could forge this first resonance for you. But the second and third must rely on you alone. We left some experience inside the jade slip. The lesser divine forging art inside is only enough to forge the second resonance. The method for forging the third was left in the royal capital. All the information is in the jade slip. As she said this, the two figures began to fade. Li Luo's expression changed. Father. Mother, he reached out to grab them, but his hand passed through light. They looked down at him with gentle and loving eyes. Little Luo. Your father and mother believe you will overcome this 5-year dead end. We know you worry about us. But before you reach the Marquis realm, you must never come looking for us. The light completely disappeared. The room became dark and quiet once more. Li Luo sat before the sphere, eyes red, but no tears fell. He spoke softly. Father. Mother. Thank you for everything. Then he picked up the jade slip and looked at the blue postnatal resonance. From today on, I am someone with a resonance too. He immediately grabbed it. Hiss. At first, icy coldness rushed in through his palm. Then overwhelming pain exploded throughout his body. His reason was drowned out. His vision went black. He collapsed to the floor. The pounding on the door came in rapid, dry, heavy bursts, tearing through the stillness of the night that blanketed the room. That sound dragged Li Luo out of the deepest darkness of unconsciousness, where his mind had just endured a transformation so painful it reached the marrow of his bones. He struggled with all his strength to lift eyelids that felt weighted with lead, as if every muscle in his face were violently protesting. The first thing he saw was the ceiling above him, carved with ancient wooden patterns, the familiar dragons and phoenixes of his room in the old Nanfan residence, where he had lived for 17 long years. What happened? Li Luo muttered to himself, but immediately felt a surge of alarm when he realized how weak his voice had become. It was thin, hoarse, and broken, like the dying breath of an old man clinging to life before a candle in a storm. He tried to move, intending to push himself up from the cold floor, but instantly discovered that his limbs held no strength at all, as if every tendon and bone had been hollowed out. Emptiness pulsed through every strand of flesh and every joint, forcing him to lie there gasping for a long while, waiting for even a trace of strength to slowly return to his heaving chest. After several difficult minutes of regulating his breathing, Li Luo finally managed to stagger to his feet. His steps wobbled, the ground beneath him seeming to tilt unnaturally. He had to clutch the edge of a wooden table to keep from collapsing before dropping heavily into a nearby chair. Young lord, are you all right? A gentle female voice, soft as flowing water, sounded from outside the door. It was Cai Wei, the beautiful and capable assistant of Jiang Qing'e. Hearing her voice, Li Luo suppressed a cough rising in his throat and answered hoarsely, I woke up a little late. What is it? Miss Qing'e sent me to inform you. The 9 pavilion masters of House Luo Lan have all gathered in the main hall. The atmosphere doesn't seem very good. Please prepare yourself and come out. Though Cai Wei sensed something unusual in the weakness of his voice, she still maintained the proper respect of a subordinate and withdrew after receiving his response. Li Luo glanced through the window. Morning sunlight had already turned the trees outside golden. So he had been unconscious all night during that dangerous fusion process. His gaze shifted to the wooden table, where the mysterious black crystal sphere had rested the night before. It was gone without a trace, leaving only a pile of gray ash scattered across the surface. The self-destruction mechanism inside it had activated perfectly, erasing every sign of the mysterious substance that had merged into his body, leaving nothing for prying eyes to investigate. He walked to the bronze mirror nearby. The reflection staring back at him left him frozen in shock. The person in the mirror had skin so pale it was frightening, as if all the blood in his body had been drained away. But the most shocking change was his hair. The black hair of a 17-year-old boy had turned completely gray-white, dry, and lifeless like autumn leaves. This was the direct consequence of sacrificing an immense amount of blood essence in exchange for the acquired resonance. Li Luo stared blankly at his silver-white hair for a long moment before suddenly sighing and mocking himself bitterly. Still, I kind of look more handsome now. More weathered. At least I look like some senior master. After joking to ease the pain, he smiled bitterly again. As expected, fusing that acquired resonance consumed more than half of the blood essence I'd accumulated over 17 years. The price was truly enormous. I almost died on the spot. That price was not only physical weakness so severe that a few steps made him dizzy, but also a terrifying emptiness deep within his soul, the severe loss of lifespan. Li Luo pressed his pale lips together tightly. From this moment on, he had only 5 years left to live. 5 years far too short for a life full of ambition. It created a suffocating urgency, like a sharp sword hanging above his head. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes, carefully sensing the inside of his body. His awareness sank toward the resonance palaces. In the first palace, which had always been empty, radiant deep blue light now shone brilliantly. A gentle, soothing force continuously flowed from within it, threading through his meridians and nourishing his dried-out body like rain falling upon a land of drought, easing the pain he had felt earlier. Sure enough, the acquired resonance had fused successfully. From this day forward, the problem of being resonanceless, which had brought him humiliation, bitterness, and contempt, had been completely resolved. And the title of resonanceless, which had caused him endless trouble, would now begin to reveal unique wonders that even naturally gifted geniuses might never touch in their lifetimes. Li Luo opened his eyes. He could clearly sense the scattered energy particles in the world around him. Among them, 2 kinds of energy automatically gathered close to him and rejoiced around him, water and light energy. From now on, he would be able to absorb these 2 energies and transform them into his own true resonance power, officially stepping onto the path of cultivation he had long desired. He slowly rose, washed up, and changed into the most formal set of clothes befitting the young lord. Looking into the mirror again, though his face was still gaunt and his white hair strangely striking, his handsome features carried a bright, confident smile. Li Luo, welcome back to your new life. As soon as Pei Hao's voice fell silent, the entire atmosphere in the reception hall seemed to be seized by an invisible hand, instantly strangled into stillness. Everyone present, whether allies of Pei Hao or the loyal pavilion masters, felt a chill run down their spines. None of them could believe that a man who had always worn a gentle, mild expression toward Li Luo could now openly spit such venomous words, cursing a 17-year-old boy with only a few years left to live. Although Li Luo's complexion was indeed frighteningly pale and his vitality clearly weakened, to directly curse someone as short-lived in the middle of the grand hall had gone far beyond an ordinary struggle for power. It was humiliation, an especially cruel blow aimed straight at the deepest pain of the young lord of House Luo Lan. Below Pei Hao, the 3 pavilion masters aligned with him showed traces of embarrassment on their faces. Yet none of them dared say a single word. They merely lowered their heads, staring fixedly at the floor as though the patterns in the stone tiles concealed some earth-shattering secret. In contrast, the other 6 pavilion masters, especially those still loyal to the Li family, showed obvious anger, fists clenched so tightly their knuckles cracked. Boom! A sharp sound suddenly rang out, causing everyone to turn toward the head seat in shock. Jiang Qing'e had slammed her jade-like palm onto the fine wooden table, sending the teacup bouncing into the air. A dense frost seemed to cover her exquisitely sculpted face, while killing intent flashed within her golden eyes. But before Jiang Qing'e could speak, Pei Hao quickly raised a hand and lightly patted his own mouth, revealing a fake smile devoid of sincerity. My apologies, truly my apologies. This mouth of mine really has no restraint. I spoke carelessly. I hope little Luo will be magnanimous and not hold it against me. Li Luo did not answer immediately. He narrowed his eyes and carefully studied the senior brother of his. In the years since his parents disappeared, he had experienced every kind of human coldness and seen countless two-faced people. Yet Pei Hao was different. To say that Li Teixuan and Tan Talon had given this man a second life would not be an exaggeration. Without his parents, Pei Hao likely would have died long ago in some filthy ditch. How could he possibly have gained the status and glory he enjoyed today? And yet the man sitting before him now did not possess even the slightest gratitude. Instead, there was only deep resentment and an ambition to devour everything his benefactors had left behind. Li Luo sighed inwardly. His parents had been wise all their lives, yet this was perhaps the one person they had misjudged and the bitterest mistake of all. So Manager Pei is merely revealing his true nature. Why would I blame you for that? Li Luo shook his head, his voice strangely calm. He slowly walked to the vacant head seat and casually sat down, facing Pei Hao directly. Besides, what if I did blame you now? Would you care about my reproach? So there's no need to waste breath repeating such useless nonsense. Pei Hao kept smiling, casually turning the ring on his finger. He was not angered by Li Luo's mockery. Just as Li Luo had said, there was no need for him to be angry with someone he viewed as a puppet. House Luo Lan no longer had the two towering mountains known as Li Taixuan and Tan Talan suppressing him. He feared no one here anymore. Aside from Jiang Qing'e, who remained an unpredictable variable, a resonanceless young lord like Li Luo was merely a decorative chess piece in his eyes. Since the young lord has arrived, then this meeting should begin, shouldn't it? Pei Hao turned his gaze toward Jiang Qing'e, ignoring Li Luo's presence as if he were invisible. Jiang Qing'e's face remained expressionless as her clear yet icy voice rang out. Then explain this first. Why is it that this year, the 3 divisions under your control have not contributed a single heavenly measure gold coin to the treasury? Pei Hao let out a dramatic sigh. The situation in my 3 divisions this year has been extremely tragic. I'm sure little junior sister has heard already the warehouses of all 3 divisions were suddenly destroyed in a fire. I suspect outside forces sabotaged us to weaken House Luo Lan. I've had it investigated, but there are still no results. So for now, there is no money to submit this year. Li Luo listened in silence. This excuse about warehouse fires was so ridiculous that even children would not believe it, but he did not interrupt. He understood his own position clearly. In the eyes of every faction, he was merely an ornamental vase whose words carried no weight. Speaking now would only invite further humiliation. Pei Hao, is this truly your final explanation? Jiang Qing'e stared directly into his eyes, and the pressure radiating from her position made the air tremble. Pei Hao smiled smugly. If little junior sister wants a reason, I can casually make one up to satisfy you. Some things don't need to be examined too clearly, right? Fine, since we've come this far, I may as well lay my cards on the table before you and the young lord. My 3 divisions will not only refuse tribute this year, they will never submit it again from this day forward. Those words struck like thunder in a clear sky, shaking everyone in the hall. Jiang Qing'e released a bone-piercing chill as she said through clenched teeth, so it seems you've decided to break away and betray House Luo Lan. How could I bear to leave this place? Pei Hao said with a faint smile. It's simply that House Luo Lan no longer has a true mansion lord. If tribute is handed over, who knows whose hands it will fall into? I'd rather keep it myself until a true lord appears, one who can genuinely command respect. At that time, it won't be too late to submit it. The atmosphere had reached its breaking point. Lei Zhang, one of the pavilion masters who supported Jiang Qing'e, slammed the table and rose with a roar. Pei Hao, do you want to destroy House Luo Lan? If the house falls, what benefit is there for you? Pei Hao shook his head, then suddenly shifted his gaze to the silent Li Luo. To be honest, it's not impossible for me to follow the rules and pay full tribute. But first, the young lord must agree to one small request of mine. All eyes turned toward Li Luo. He slightly raised his brows. I'm quite curious. What condition does Manager Pei have? Pei Hao's eyes swept over Li Luo, then settled on Jiang Qing'e's graceful figure and peerless beauty. Deep within his gaze, an undisguised flash of greed and desire appeared. I hope the young lord will dissolve his engagement with little junior sister. The entire hall froze. Li Luo's expression turned terrifyingly cold. Whatever private understanding existed between him and Jiang Qing'e regarding that engagement was a matter between the two of them. Who the hell was Pei Hao to use it as a bargaining chip? Boom. A tremendously powerful light energy suddenly erupted from Jiang Qing'e's side. Brilliant radiance like the sun swept away every shadow in the hall. In that instant, Li Luo only saw a dazzling figure shoot forward, charging straight at Pei Hao with sky-soaring killing intent. Pei Hao lived up to his ambition. His reaction was lightning fast. The sword-shaped earring on his right ear flew free and transformed into a gleaming golden long sword. Sharp metallic resonance power burst forth like streaks of golden lightning. Clang. The two swords collided, unleashing a violent shockwave that blasted nearby tables and chairs into splinters. The 9 pavilion masters hurriedly circulated their power to block the aftershocks while observing the battle. Jiang Qing'e gripped a heavy sword, her light resonance power so pure and domineering that it hurt to look at directly. Opposite her, Pei Hao wielded the golden sword, his metal resonance power razor sharp. As the two struggled, their powers clashed so fiercely that the tiled floor beneath them cracked like a spiderweb. Pei Hao narrowed his eyes and smiled. A 9th grade light resonance truly lives up to its reputation. Little junior sister has only just entered the early Earth Fiend stage, yet your resonance power is no weaker than mine, even though I'm already at the late Earth Fiend stage. Your metal resonance has risen to 7th grade already. It seems you've swallowed quite a bit of the house's resources over the years. Jiang Qing'e coldly exposed him. They both exerted force at the same time. Another piercing metallic crash rang out, sending them both several steps backward. Immediately, the pavilion masters of each faction rushed behind their leaders, confronting one another. Outside in the courtyard, guards from both sides had already drawn their swords. The air of civil war spread across the entire old estate. Little junior sister, are you planning to make House Luo Lan the laughingstock of the great Xia kingdom? Pei Hao sneered. Jiang Qing'e pointed her sword directly at him. Pei Hao, if you don't wish to die, swallow those words you just said. What lies between us is none of your business. Pei Hao fell silent for a moment, then looked at Li Luo with pity. Li Luo, you're a smart man. Surely you understand the saying, possessing jade invites disaster. House Luo Lan and a heaven-blessed prodigy like little junior sister are both things far beyond your ability to keep. If you insist on clinging to that engagement built on old gratitude to bind her, then in the end it will only bring calamity upon yourself. Li Luo calmly replied, so in your view, I should give up both House Luo Lan and Sister Qing'e? Exactly. Only by restraining greed can one live a wealthy and carefree life. Pei Hao nodded. Li Luo gave a faint smile. Pei Hao, are you not afraid that one day my parents might suddenly return? Pei Hao's pupils shrank for an instant, but then he shook his head and sighed mockingly. Stop clinging to childish fantasies. Based on the information I've obtained, they are never coming back. Your greatest support is gone. Right now, you're even more pitiful than I was back then. At least I still had potential. You have nothing. Pei Hao's words fell like razor-sharp blades, each one stabbing straight into the deepest wounds of those present. Several pavilion masters who had remained loyal to Jiang Qing'e openly showed their anger, their chests rising and falling as they burned with indignation on behalf of the young lord. Instinctively, they turned to look at Li Luo, expecting an outburst or at the very least, a darkened expression. Yet all of them were stunned to see that his face remained as calm as a windless lake, revealing not the slightest trace of anger. That strange composure made them breathe easier while inwardly marveling, although this young mansion lord had been born without a resonance, such steadiness of character was truly rare. Pei Hao also noticed Li Luo's indifference to his provocation. A flicker of surprise passed through his deep-set eyes, but he quickly regained his usual calm. Perhaps the brutal hardships of the past few years had forged Li Luo into someone who could accept reality with iron resolve. Finished talking yet? Li Luo asked in an even tone, without the slightest ripple of emotion. Pei Hao curled his lips into a faint smile. To be honest, I've always found it strange. My parents showed you great kindness, so why has your hatred toward them only grown deeper over time? Li Luo looked directly into his eyes and asked the question that had troubled him for years. At those words, the smile vanished from Pei Hao's face. He was silent for a few seconds before replying flatly, Master and Madam treated me well enough. But they always knew what I desired most. I wanted to become their true disciple, not some lowly honorary disciple in name only. For that goal, I poured all my efforts into House Luo Lan, yet they never once formally accepted me. Do you know how many times I waited, only to end in disappointment? Li Luo chuckled softly, the mockery in his smile unmistakable. So this is how it is: raise someone with a cup of rice, and they repay you with gratitude; give them a bucket, and they repay you with hatred. Looking at you now, I'd say my parents were right not to accept you. With the nature of an ungrateful wolf like you, if they had truly made you a personal disciple, your ambition would only have grown larger, making it even easier for you to seize House Luo Lan for yourself. Pei Hao shook his head, unwilling to continue debating morality or gratitude. It seems you are not very interested in my proposal to dissolve the engagement. Li Luo nodded decisively. Stop wasting your efforts. The engagement is a matter between Qing'e and me. It will not change because of any threat from you. Pei Hao sighed lightly, false pity appearing in his eyes. Li Luo, greed always comes at a heavy price. This is no longer the past. You no longer have the capital to be stubborn. Li Luo stared at him. Though he was far weaker in terms of presence and power, the depth of that gaze made Pei Hao feel an inexplicable discomfort creeping into his heart. Pei Hao, I'll return those words to you as well, Li Luo said with unusual seriousness. Pei Hao was silent for a moment, then laughed. Do you truly think little junior sister can protect you forever? How naive. But since you refuse, then so be it. From this day forward, the 3 divisions under my control will not submit a single coin to the treasury. As for any orders issued by the house, whether my divisions obey them or not will depend entirely on my mood. The expressions of the 6 remaining pavilion masters turned grim. Even the 2 neutral ones understood that if Pei Hao truly split House Luo Lan apart, their own interests would suffer greatly. If it came to that, they would have no choice but to stand with Jiang Qing'e and move against him. Yet once civil war broke out, House Luo Lan would be left fatally weakened before the watchful eyes of every power in the Great Xia Kingdom. What? Thinking of making a move against me? Pei Hao sneered as he noticed the hostility in their eyes. Seeing his confidence, Lei Zhang and the others could not help but feel wary. Over the years, many enemies who had stood in House Luo Yan's way had died by Pei Hao's hand. He was now at the late Earth Fiend general stage, while most of the pavilion masters were only in the early or middle stages. The only one here capable of opposing him was Jiang Qing'e, with her 9th grade light resonance. Everyone, I did not come here to argue, Pei Hao said as he looked around, his voice strangely persuasive. What I'm doing is for House Luo Lan to continue existing. If little junior sister agrees to break off the engagement, the 2 of us joining forces would certainly take House Luo Lan even further. The reason things have come to this, can only be blamed on this young lord's greed. As he spoke, Pei Hao took a black command token from inside his robe. On it was engraved the character Mo, carrying an aura of authority. Lei Zhang blurted out, that is Elder Mo's command token. Within House Luo Lan, aside from the 9 pavilion masters, there were also 3 honored elders, all at the Heavenly Dipper general stage. They were the house's strongest combat force and would only act when facing external threats. The fact that Elder Mo's personal token was in Pei Hao's hand proved one terrifying truth: Pei Hao had already won over at least one Heavenly Dipper general to his side. Back then, when Master invited the 3 elders, he granted them supervisory authority, Pei Hao said with a triumphant smile. According to the rules, whoever gains the support of 2 elders and 4 pavilion masters at next year's mansion ceremony has the right to compete for the position of mansion lord. So don't worry, I have no intention of splitting House Luo Lan apart. What I want is a complete House Luo Lan. The pavilion masters loyal to Jiang Qing'e were stunned by both Pei Hao's ambition and the depth of his preparations. He had begun laying his plans in secret the moment the 2 mansion lords disappeared. Pei Hao glanced at the ice-cold Jiang Qing'e, then turned toward Li Luo. Cherish this final year of yours. When the mansion ceremony arrives, House Luo Lan will have nothing to do with you anymore. Only then will you truly be left with nothing. With that, Pei Hao turned and strode away arrogantly, followed silently by the 3 pavilion masters of his faction. Only after their figures vanished did the tension in the hall begin to ease, though worry remained on every face. Jiang Qing'e, however, remained astonishingly composed. She calmly reassured the pavilion masters and gave them instructions before dismissing them. The reception hall fell into complete silence. Li Luo sat there, staring at the floor until a pair of long, slender, fair legs came into view. He looked up and saw Jiang Qing'e gazing down at him with her quiet golden eyes. It seems calm on the outside, but inside you're very angry, she said softly. Li Luo gave a bitter smile. How could I not be? He treated me like dirt and trampled my dignity by using the engagement in front of everyone. But you handled yourself well. You never lost composure. Jiang Qing'e smiled faintly in praise. Li Luo sighed. If I could, I would have killed him on the spot and cleaned house for my parents. The only reason I kept control was because I know I currently have no strength to do anything. He now understood deeply that the title of young mansion lord meant nothing without power to support it. No one can sail smoothly forever. Enduring for now is nothing to be ashamed of, Jiang Qing'e said gently. Li Luo nodded. I know. These past 2 years, Qing'e, you've carried too much. House Luo Lan had risen too quickly and lacked a solid foundation. Without her holding it together, there would likely have been more traitors than just Pei Hao. Jiang Qing'e sat beside him, elegantly crossing her long legs. Don't take Pei Hao's words to heart. I'll deal with him, it just requires more time. I promised you that when the time comes, I'll hand over a complete House Luo Lan to you. She paused, then looked at him meaningfully. Pei Hao is not what you should be worrying about most right now. What you need to focus on is the grand examination at Nanfan Academy next month. If you can't enter St. Qianxing Academy, then every agreement between us becomes void. Tilting her head slightly, she smiled faintly. If it feels too difficult, just tell me. I'll consider your promise nothing more than a moment of youthful impulsiveness. Li Luo said nothing. Instead, he suddenly extended his hand. Give me your hand. Jiang Qing'e was briefly startled. If it had been anyone else, she would have drawn her sword immediately. But because it was Li Luo, she hesitated only a moment before placing her small, soft hand into his palm. Li Luo held that jade-like hand, feeling its delicate warmth, the signature aura of light resonance. He had no improper intent. At once, he guided a weak stream of resonance power from his palm into hers. Jiang Qing'e had been calm, but the instant she sensed that energy, her expression changed drastically. She grabbed Li Luo's wrist in return and directed her senses into his body. To her astonishment, the resonance palace that had always been empty within him was now radiating mysterious deep blue light. This is a water resonance. You have a resonance now, she exclaimed in shock. Then, after calming herself, she guessed, was it because of the item your parents left for you? Li Luo nodded. Jiang Qing'e let out a breath of relief, her eyes shining. This is truly the best news of the day. Its grade may not be high, but it's extremely pure. No matter what, this is an excellent beginning. Her mood visibly improved, and she teased him, congratulations. You're one small step closer to breaking off the engagement. Li Luo smiled faintly, then suddenly asked, do you think what Pei Hao said about my parents is believable? Jiang Qing'e replied calmly, he is a shallow man. How could he possibly understand Master and Madam's true strength? Even if they are trapped somewhere, I'm certain they will return safely. Li Luo nodded slowly but firmly. I believe that too. Jiang Qing'e stood and walked toward the window. The afternoon sunlight draped her slender back in radiant light. Tomorrow I'll be returning to the royal capital. If you need anything, tell Cai Wei. She'll remain here for a while. She turned back and looked at Li Luo with golden eyes sparkling in the sunlight. So, Li Luo, I hope the next time we meet will be at St. Qianxing Academy. That gentle smile was the last thing lingering in the reception hall, marking a new beginning, one filled with hardship, but also hope for the young lord of House Luo Lan.